The Cultural Revolution sheds light on the issue of ideology, becoming the ultimate yardstick for behavior. I would like to talk about the Cultural Revolution. It once raised the banner of liberation. It claimed to free people's minds from old ideas and outdated traditions. But in the end, it created a different and deeper form of oppression. Let us begin with historical background. In the early 20th century, China experienced long periods of instability. In 1911, the imperial system, which had lasted for over 2,000 years, was overthrown. After that came warlord conflicts, Japanese invasion, and civil war between political factions. Finally, in 1949, Mao Zedong, he led the Communist Party to victory and established the People's Republic of China. Mao was not an ordinary politician. He was a revolutionary leader. His rise reflected the anxiety of many Chinese intellectuals at the time. After World War I ended in 1918, the Treaty of Versailles in 1919 transferred German rights in China to Japan. This caused widespread anger among Chinese students and intellectuals, leading to the May 4th movement. This caused widespread anger among Chinese students and intellectuals, leading to the May 4th movement. Many began asking, if China does not fundamentally change, how can it survive in a world dominated by powerful nations? Under this atmosphere, communism appeared to offer a solution. In 1921, the Chinese Communist Party was founded. Take 2 minutes and write a short paragraph. If your country had experienced invasion, humiliation, and internal collapse for decades, would you prioritize stability, freedom, or radical transformation? Why? Do not answer what sounds correct. Answer what feels historically realistic. Whatever you wrote, keep it in mind. Because leaders in moments of instability are rarely choosing between good and evil. They are choosing between fear and possibility. And that tension shaped the next stage of China's transformation. The Communist Party's rise depended heavily on rural mobilization and armed struggle. Land reform encouraged peasants to struggle against landlords. This was not only an economic policy, it was a political strategy. When peasants participated in public accusations and violence, they broke ties with the old social order. This helped the party establish strong grassroots control in rural China. Write down one sentence. When people participate in political violence, even if they believe it is justified, does it make them more loyal, more fearful, or both? Why? Explain your reasoning in 1 or 2 lines. Notice how loyalty and fear can grow together. This psychological pattern did not disappear after the revolution succeeded. It quietly continued into the next phase, when power was already secured. In 1958, Mao launched the Great Leap Forward. The goal was to transform China rapidly into an industrial power. People were organized into communes. Backyard steel furnaces were built. Agriculture was collectivized. The result was disastrous. Historians estimate that between 15 and 30 million people died from famine during this period. It remains one of the largest famines in human history. After this failure, some leaders within the party argued for economic recovery and more practical governance. But Mao believed the problem was not policy failure. He believed revolutionary spirit had weakened. At the same time, China broke with the Soviet Union. The two communist states accused each other of betraying true revolution. Facing both domestic criticism and international rivalry, Mao confronted a question: was he still the true representative of revolution? Consider leadership and failure, and write briefly. When a leader's major policy fails catastrophically, is it more dangerous for them to admit error or to redefine the problem? Why might redefining the problem feel politically safer? Redefining the problem can be more powerful than solving it. And in the mid-1960s, the problem was no longer described as economic failure. It was described as ideological weakness. That shift opened the door to something much larger. In 1966, Mao launched the Cultural Revolution. Its declared goal was to eliminate the four olds: old ideas, old culture, old customs, and old habits. Students formed Red Guard groups. Schools closed. Universities stopped admitting new students for nearly 10 years. Teachers were publicly humiliated. Officials were imprisoned. Millions suffered persecution. Scholars estimate that 1 to 2 million people died due to violence or related causes. Beginning in 1968, around 17 million urban youths were sent to rural areas. In what was called the Down to the Countryside movement, an entire generation lost normal educational opportunities. In 1976, Mao died. In 1981, the Chinese government officially declared the Cultural Revolution a serious mistake. Imagine you are a 17-year-old student in 1966. Write one paragraph beginning with, "If I refuse to join the Red Guards." What would you fear, or what would you risk? fear of isolation can be stronger than personal doubt. And when millions of young people face the same choice at the same time, individual hesitation becomes historically invisible. This is how movements gain momentum. Now, let us pause and ask, why did this happen? Originally, a country makes decisions based on institutions and rules. But during the Cultural Revolution, the standard changed. Instead of asking, does this policy work? People asked, are you on the revolutionary side? When ideology becomes more important than rules, procedure loses power. If someone was labeled counter-revolutionary, they could be publicly humiliated without formal legal process. Law gave way to slogans. This was not simply chaos. It was a new logic of power. Write a short comparison. In a system where ideology defines right and wrong, what happens to people who are uncertain? Are they neutral or are they automatically suspicious? Explain in 2 to 3 sentences. The philosopher Hannah Arendt studied Nazi Germany and introduced the idea of the banality of evil. She observed that many people involved in wrongdoing were not monsters. They were ordinary individuals who stopped thinking critically. They said, I was just following orders. Everyone else was doing it. During the Cultural Revolution, many young people believed they were doing something morally right. But standing on the correct side does not always mean doing what is truly right. When moral alignment becomes the highest virtue, independent thinking becomes risky. History shows us that moral collapse rarely begins with hatred. It often begins with silence, habit, and routine. And this is why the Cultural Revolution cannot be reduced to a story of villains alone. Now think about today's social media environment. When someone is accused of wrongdoing, people quickly ask, which side are you on? Before facts are fully understood, we feel pressure to take a position. We may not have a cultural revolution today, but we are still haunted by the same human frailties. When identity becomes more important than process, the space for reflection diminishes. Without naming specific individuals, describe a situation where you felt pressure to take a side before fully understanding the issue. How did that pressure affect your thinking? We are not equating social media with political terror, but we are observing something structural. When alignment moves faster than reflection, judgment narrows. And narrowing judgment is where history becomes fragile. The Cultural Revolution teaches us something important. Passion can drive change. Ideals can inspire transformation. But without institutions to limit power, and without rules to protect diverse voices, collective energy can spiral out of control. History may not repeat itself in the same form, but human nature shows similar patterns across time. So let me leave you with a question. When standing on a particular side makes you feel safe, are you still willing to search for truth? Willingness to understand and willingness to seek truth are the first steps toward genuine goodness. True moral strength comes from inner integrity, not from being recognized by power. Power can grant you benefits, but it cannot give you inner stability. That depends on your ability to think. The Cultural Revolution is not only a Chinese story. It is a reminder that certainty feels safe. But safety and truth are not always the same. And the ability to think, especially when pressured not to, is the quiet foundation of freedom.